All right. Good morning, everybody. We'll just give all of our participants a chance to get logged in. Just takes a few seconds for everybody to be admitted to the webinar. So looking forward to today. Awesome. Well, my name is Susan Bryant. I'm a CPA and principal here at the MB Group, CPA firm based out of Plano, Texas. We specialize in providing accounting, tax, and advisory services to business owners to helping them to change their financial future. One of the things that we're committed to is education, and that's why I have Jordan Pence with me here today. Jordan is a certified financial planner. He's been in the financial services business for a decade now, or more than that, and he's an expert in non-qualified planning, has extensive expertise with life insurance, annuity products, and in his practice, he's worked with individuals, business owners, and many other advisors to ensure that they are providing accurate advice in these areas. And we're really glad to have you, Jordan. Thank you so
Thanks,
much
Susan.
for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks
for having me. And I think we got a really exciting topic, especially with the economic situations that's been going on. I think people are turning to, alternatives that they can utilize inside their retirement portfolios and their portfolios in general.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to dive right in because we know that everyone's super busy these days, because especially business owners, they got a business to run. But yes, this is a really important topic because so many people have got so much money tied up in their business and they're not thinking about their personal financial future. And they're not really thinking about some of the contingencies and risk of having sort of all their eggs in one basket. So we wanted to kind of provide some information here. So
yeah, that's a really good point, Susan. So a couple of things we're going to talk about today, just really kind of broad categories or broad topics, but want to talk about the challenges of saving for retirement. How can you take those assets and then convert it to income in retirement? Because presumably you've sold your business, maybe if you're working for a company, quit your job, whatever. And then going to just briefly go over portfolio optimization. And then talk a little bit about annuities. Are they a problem? Are they a solution? What's up with that? And then just some safe money options. How can you grow your wealth without putting it at risk or putting it in the market in general? So challenges of saving for retirement. Really when you think about it, one of people's largest fears is just to not have enough money in retirement, having to go back to work when they've hit a certain age. And really, if you think about it, the biggest risk is the way the market's been behaving recently, really, where it's extremely volatile and you can't predict, where it's going to go. Just yesterday, I don't have the exact figures off the top of my head, but the market was down about 1.5%. I mean, that's dramatic. Volatility has just been increasing exponentially since, I'd say, really the coronavirus pandemic, I would say, since the beginning of 2020.
Yeah, this is a really interesting thing because, I think a lot of people also, even my parents just, my mom said, I think your dad had too much money in the stock market. And they're not necessarily keeping an eye on, they're not watching the markets, like you said.
They shouldn't be.
Yeah, they don't know all of the stuff that they should be looking for. And that was felt, it was deeply felt, right? This was like kind of like a scary type of feeling. Yeah. Whoa, what, we just lost a lot of money. Are we going to have enough time to make it back in the market?
Exactly. And I'm actually going to talk a little bit about this later. But there's many times where people are making decisions in their retirement based on what the market is doing rather than what they want to do. And that's a big problem if you think about it, because you only have so many, years or days, maybe even, on this planet. And, if you're just waiting for the market to come back to go buy a new car or take that trip with your kids or whatever, that's kind of a sad thing if you think about it. So anyways, market volatility, in addition, it's hard to predict the growth of the funds. And then finally, I guess this is outside of really market conditions, but inflation can have a pretty dramatic effect on somebody's retirement plans or really, challenging that running out of money problem.
Absolutely. The price of eggs now, $5 a dozen. That's
Yeah, exactly.
pretty substantial.
And exactly. And you kind of touched on this, but really as of November 2022, so about 3 months ago, average 401k balance, which is where many people have a lot of their cash tied up, has been down over 23% from the prior year. And IRAs, which are just simply 401ks after you roll it over after you've been employed, or maybe you're putting money in an IRA as a self-employed person, those are down about 25% year over year. So some dramatic impacts because of the volatility in the markets right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. People are feeling it.
It is. So how do you manage the risk? How do you look at this? And this is just a general topic, but there's some really important factors that are going to dictate how long your money will last in retirement after you've sold that business, after you retire, whatever it is. But really, it's the volatility of the market, where you're going to get your income, what flexibility do you have with your various assets, and then how are you managing that risk? What are you doing about it?
Yeah.
So this is kind of an interesting example that I've shared with people. I mean, I just took a snapshot in history and just said you had $500,000. And again, this is just a kind of an example, but it's, if you have flexibility, or if you're trying to time the market or whatever, this can create big problems. If you see on the first scenario, you just take out 100,000 for 5 years there, you're left with, basically nothing at the end of it. And on the flip side, if after the market went down, you didn't withdraw anything, you'd see the dramatic difference. You have almost $30,000 left over after, this time period. So really this is just to demonstrate how maybe precarious of a position someone is in when they're taking money out of an account while it's still subject to market fluctuations.
Yeah. I don't necessarily know if this is something people think about on a routine basis either, especially when they get to retirement, because they're trying to enjoy so many other parts of their lives. They're really trusting someone else to be thinking about this. So
right. And maybe somebody else is helping them with it, but it doesn't mean that because the market's gone down, they've done a bad job or anything. It's just how it is. It's impossible to predict. If that person could predict it, they'd probably be doing something else with their time.
Right. They would be retired.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you generate retirement income? And this is just a rule that's been, since I've gotten in the business, everybody's talked about the 4% rule. The 4% rule is just simply, if you take all your investments that are in the market or otherwise and withdraw so if it's $1 million, you withdraw 4%, which is 40,000 every year, and you adjust that for inflation, you have a very high probability of not outliving your money during a 30-year retirement. So you're 65, you take out 40,000 from $1 million, and you adjust that for inflation every year, there's a high probability based on back testing that you won't run out of money. Now, I think this figure would surprise a lot of people, because 4% of $1 million sounds like a ton of money, right? 40,000 does not sound like a ton of money to most people, I think. So
yeah, especially right now. I mean, $40,000 is not going to go very far.
Exactly. So I find it kind of an interesting rule, but this was developed by this guy, Bill Bengen, and all he did was just take a look at various 30-year periods over a time period and just basically back tested them. And he discovered that the 4% withdrawal did not exhaust the funds in any of these scenarios, basically is what was discovered. And then on the next slide, I have just kind of a demonstration of this. So in certain years, you could have withdrawn a significantly higher percentage and not outlived your money. But the baseline, basically, where you would have never run out of money, was the 4%. So that's where that is. I'm sure. Well, I don't know if you've heard this 4% rule, Susan, but at least in the financial planning arena, that's what everybody talks about, and it's sort of like the standard for whatever reason. I guess, and I even I've read some literature more recently that brings that down to 3.5 because of how volatile it's been lately. But most back testing and experts out there believe the 4% number is still a pretty good number on somebody's assets.
Yeah, well, I think that's just what a great rule to generally apply. I think for most people, they can probably think about how much money they need to live.
Yep.
Especially if you have like certain things that like your house is paid for, cars are paid for. There are certain costs of living that have been eliminated, but you still have utilities and all these other recurring costs, and then all the other things you want to do in retirement, right?
Right.
Or
exactly.
If you have a vacation home, you've got carrying costs. There's a lot of things to consider. I like having this rule to sort of back into this number, right? It becomes an algebra problem.
It really does. And again, if you think about it, this is just all your money in various markets, stocks, bonds, that sort of thing is kind of the idea behind this. So
yeah, I like this. I think if this is the one piece of information people take away today, even just putting that in their mind, what's my number need to be? You can get there just using that rule. So
you can. This is a very simple way to do it, I think. And I'm going to reveal a little bit later, maybe some more efficient ways to do it. Not that what I'm going to show you is the only thing you should do, but I think the 4% is a really good rule of thumb for many people.
I love it. I think that's great information, Jordan.
Definitely. So I put this on here. Susan already brought it up already, but you can see since 2000, late 90s, inflation has been almost nothing. If you think about it, it's been hovering right around 2 and 3%. In fact, when you get the CFP and you go through all the classes, it's almost everything they say, well, project inflation around 2.5 or 3%, because that's what it's been basically forever. And then you see we have this blip in the past 2 years going up to nearly 9% inflation. So just to give you an idea, today is very abnormal. Hopefully they can get the inflation under control, but it's certainly something that everybody should think about. And the conventional wisdom is that, having money in stocks, while risky, it can be a hedge for inflation pressures. So how do you convert your assets into income? So I think this is what I was alluding to earlier, Susan, but you could do the 4% rule. Throughout history, the 4% rule has worked. Will it still work? Probably. Is there a possibility that it won't work? There certainly is a possibility, but the 4% rule is just simply making withdrawals from an investment account, and it has risk associated with it. Well, what are some other ways to do that? Another way to do that, if you wanted to guarantee it, is you can actually buy a pension. So insurance companies have put together products where you exchange a lump sum of money for a series of guaranteed payments as long as you live. And there's some positives and negatives to that. I think it could be a good option to at least guarantee a baseline of income for many people.
Yeah. And so many times, I think we've all seen on like the Hallmark Channel, all the commercials for annuities and things like that. And sometimes they get a bad name. And I know you're going to talk about that a little bit later.
I will.
But there's always I think that people have to go into some of these things with an open mind and to remember it's not meant to be the only strategy. A lot of the every CFP financial advisor talks about diversification,
Yep.
and it is really important to consider all of your options that are available. And so, I always encourage people to just listen, because you never know how you could put a piece of your wealth into something, and then it can pay off the dividends later, because it's different from everything else you're doing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And anybody who's in the business and is foolish to say this is the best thing ever, this is what you should do only, is almost committing malpractice, So I totally agree with you. And I just picked a sort of an example here, and I think this is a really good example. If you followed the 4% rule on $1 million, you could take out 40,000 a year, which we established. Now that with the 4% rule, that is expecting it to go up with inflation. So full disclosure with that. However, for a male age 65, you could buy what's generally referred to as a single premium immediate annuity, and it would provide guaranteed for the rest of your life, no matter how long you lived, nearly $70,000. So, that's a pretty big jump. You could set that up for inflation adjustment and things like that, which would lower your initial payment. But it's something that you would never outlive. And, it's an interesting side note. My dad was talking to my mom about this, and, he's about 61, 62. And, he was telling me, we could buy this annuity and it would do this. And my mom's like, well, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you just guarantee? We don't, why wouldn't we just have a guaranteed income? So I think it's an interesting conversation, at least for a baseline for somebody to provide a level of income.
And interesting to think about if one person, survives the other.
Yeah.
And continues to need that guaranteed income. And maybe it's not the person who has managed the finances and knows all those things. You're sort of setting them up for some security in the future without they don't have to know how to play the stock market, or, they actually have a little bit of maybe a leg up in, while they're getting everything figured out, they still have money coming in. So I think
that's a really good point, Susan. And you can actually, there's many different combinations that you can do with these. Pretty much anything you can think of, you can set it up and guarantee it. It's just a matter of coming down to what plan you want to make and how you want to do it. But yeah, there's something maybe comforting about knowing that, whatever the insurance company is going to send you a check on a monthly basis, annual basis, however we want to set it up. It's totally flexible. So it's kind of interesting, but
for sure.
I will say just one thing. I want to make sure everybody understands that, though, with a SPIA, single premium immediate annuity, you are exchanging in this case, $1 million for 70,000. Some cases you could get that million back, but you are exchanging it. So it's just a thing to be aware of. But anyways, portfolio optimization. So, when you think about it, a portfolio in general is just simply a makeup of various financial products, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Is pretty typical for most people. And really, and you're going to see a common theme here, but as you get closer to retirement, bond values can actually fluctuate. The stock market fluctuates. And what you can see here is a pretty good graph of that. And this is just, since 2000, where have the blue line, which is very small, is the stock market. And the green line is what yield you can get from bonds. And as many people know, that was almost down to 1% down in 2020. Now it's jumped up a little bit. But what many people do not realize is bond pricing is actually pretty interesting. If I buy a bond today and the interest rates go down, as those interest rates go down, the value of that bond will actually go up. And conversely, if I bought a bond in 2020, as the interest rates rose, the value of that bond would actually go down if I needed to sell it. So that's something that I don't know if people totally understand, but it's a kind of an interesting thing to consider when purchasing those types of assets.
Yeah, for sure. People need to know the relationship between, and this is a great graph because it sort of illustrates how opposite they are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no doubt about that. So if there are so many risks with the stock market and the bond market, et cetera, what other options are there? And you're going to see a common theme here. And one of them you could save in the bank. I mean, that's not going to really yield very much. There's also certificates of deposit, which, just provide you an interest credit year over year. And then many people are considering various types of annuities as an alternative to their fixed income portion. So that's what I'm going to really hone on. I mean, CDs, they can provide fixed income. They're guaranteed. They're going to pay out. But typically CDs are not as powerful as annuities for a couple of reasons, which I'll get into in a minute.
Yeah, well, I think one thing is for sure, don't count on Social Security.
Yeah, right.
That annuity probably is not going to pay.
No, that one is probably not. And unfortunately for many people, I mean, there'll be something, but who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know that I should
Don't count on it.
I don't know that we should count on it, Susan. So anyways, and these are some studies that I had found, but people in America are on pace to buy about 30 billion in annuities over 2022. And the last time anywhere close to that amount has been purchased was in 2008. And once you kind of see what these types of products can do, you'll probably see why that's the case, because they do provide a significant hedge and way more stability in a portfolio. And I think that's why it should really be considered. But really, when you think about it, it's just simply to mitigate those the volatility in the market in general.
Well, in 2008, I think they have the flashbacks of where they remember what that was like. I mean, it was a really scary time. I mean, I know things are a lot different right now, but it's still that same feeling, that pit in your stomach of like, you just don't know, the uncertainty, the ambiguity. And for older people, it's just not, they can't take those risks. They just can't. So
no, and imagine if you're trying to draw money out of the portfolio that you have and the market goes down dramatically. Where are you going to get your income out to go take that vacation you were planning or whatever you wanted to do? So but why is that the case? Why are there so many annuities being put in place and these types of products? And really, it's because it can stabilize the portfolio. I just mentioned this, because these types of products, fixed annuities, are not invested in the stock market. It's not subject to the same volatility. And really what I'm referring to here is what's typically referred to as a deferred annuity. So these deferred annuities provide an interest credit over a number of years. It may be guaranteed, may not be guaranteed. There's different options, but this is just simply a portfolio or a product that bears interest. And it's a very kind of simple type of product, but man, it can provide a lot of flexibility for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So typically, and it was a little bit of what I alluded to, but typically a person who is investing in a fixed annuity is either going to put in a lump sum, whatever it may be, or maybe they're putting in money over a period of time. And for that exchange, an insurance company, it's almost always an insurance company. Well, it is always an insurance company. In turn, they're going to provide some sort of guaranteed interest rate. And during this period where it's accumulating interest, it's known as, well, they call it the accumulation phase. They weren't very creative with that. And during this phase of building up cash inside of these types of products, if you're holding this product in a not in a IRA or a qualified plan or whatever, well, even if you were, but if you're holding it individually, the growth on that is not taxed until you start taking money out of the annuity. So this is a very popular tool for somebody who's maybe in a higher tax bracket as well, because it can shield some of this growth on these products until you decide to finally take it out at some point in the future.
Mhm.
So fixed annuities, really the benefit again, predictable returns, guaranteed rates that are going to be almost always higher than a bank. And then you have the tax deferred growth. So some pretty huge benefits.
Yeah, those are big benefits.
A newer invention, which really happens, they've been around for a long time, is what's known as indexed annuities. Now, indexed annuities are just like fixed annuities. They provide some credit from the insurance company. However, the credit is based on, or tied to, you could say, certain market indices, and these were really invented when interest rates were much lower, and these insurance companies wanted to find a way to, I would say, pass a little bit of risk to the consumer and give them the opportunity for a much higher return.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, it's still no risk, because while they're tied to the market, you wouldn't lose money due to market fluctuations or market volatility. They'll give you some or all of the upside depending on what indexes. And I have some examples in here, but which we can talk about a little bit later, or which I'll bring up a little bit later. But the general benefits of the index annuity is that as the index increases that it's tied to, you're going to get value increase. You're going to get interest credits into your contract, and the increase in potential interest credit is going to really act as a deterrent or combat some inflation and things like that. And then on the flip side, you might not earn any money, but if the market goes down, the stock market goes down, you'll just won't earn any interest. So it's better than, I guess, negative 5, 10, or even, I guess, 25% like over the last year.
Yeah, it certainly is sort of, it is sort of like insurance for your.
That's exactly what it is.
Case. I mean, you really are, which I think this is kind of great. I mean, I think that's interesting to think about, that there's you're not completely disconnecting yourself from the stock market in an indexed annuity, because it is the return is tied to that. Now, you might not get the full upside, but you're also bearing the full risk.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So, I mean, it's sort of like the best of both worlds in that regard.
Yeah. And many of the, there's a lot of opinions on a lot of products out there, but
yeah,
many of the people that I speak to are starting to incorporate these as an alternative to bonds in somebody's portfolio, because they are higher yielding. They don't carry as much risk, and they typically are getting better returns. So it's been kind of interesting, and that leads me really nicely into annuities. Are they a solution or are they a problem? I mean, you hear a lot of noise out there about a lot of different things, and
I feel like this is the thing that people have heard these same things right here.
Yeah, it's kind of a lightning rod, I think. And I mean, I can understand why they could potentially get a bad name. I mean, I've seen some things where, maybe it didn't make sense for somebody to do something and they got locked into something that didn't make sense. And it is what it is. I mean, I think it's, when it comes down to it, annuities, like any other product, like life insurance, like mutual funds, like whatever, it's just a product. I mean, or it's just a tool, the hammer is it's not bad or good. It just depends on how you use it,
That's right. Well, and it's a matter of someone telling you when to use that particular tool, and them having really your best interest in mind, right? Not selling you something.
Totally agree.
Selling you something that really does meet your certain circumstances, and you've sort of thought out with your team, right, that this is a good plan for me and my family into the future. So yeah, I mean, a lot of things get a bad rap, right?
Totally agree. So I'll read. I think the most interesting one is the Fisher one. So, but everybody's probably seen his commercials. I mean, that these are just people's opinions. The next page is just some other people that have, talked about different uses for it. And, Tom Hagna, he says any retirement plan that doesn't contain annuity will be sub-optimized. And, he's got a really good point, because you can create a huge hedge by potentially investing in one of these for income purposes, for the right purposes, and if it fits your strategy. So
Yeah, I like Dana. I like Dana's perspective here. It just has to fit. It has to be something that's personal to you. I mean, it's the
totally
same
agree.
thing. It's the same thing in any other, retirement saving strategy, a tax planning strategy, a business strategy.
Everything.
I mean, it has to be something that's well thought out and fits well with that specific person. So I think
Yep.
that's probably the one thing I would say is that this is really something that you have to go and explore, with Jordan, especially with you, and saying, hey, let me understand the full picture.
Yep.
You just don't run out to a website and find annuity, right?
No,
You really have to have the full picture and make sure you're getting the right advice for your
Right.
specific situation. Very, very interesting thing is that, we as people now have access to a plethora of data, and Google. I mean, you can Google anything and find out lots of information, but that's generally very generic advice for generic situations. Specific advice for a specific situation requires the help of an expert. So
I agree.
just is
Yeah.
so important. I really think Dana's got that right. And
Yeah.
that should just apply to like literally everything.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I mean, people ask me all the time, are 401ks good or bad? Or anything, is this good or bad? And it's like, well, maybe. I mean, it depends on what you're trying to do. Yeah,
That's the classic accountant answer, Jordan.
I
It
know. I love
depends.
that answer. That's what I tell everybody. And then it just depends on your situation. And it really does. I mean, it's just like the hammer. The hammer's neither good nor bad. It's bad at, cutting wood, but it's good at making things stick together,
That's right.
So,
That's an excellent point. So, well, with that in mind, I mean, I really like this list that you made of all these reasons.
yeah.
If you should think about it.
Yeah. So I think these are really, really, and these are just some things that some of them come from personal experience, but many people live a just in case retirement. And so what I mean by that is they never, and all these kind of a similar theme, but they never really do all the things that they want to do because they're worried that, well, I might need that money later on. So just in case I won't take as much out, and just in case I won't do this or that or whatever. In addition to that, they might be afraid to spend the money, they might, and really that's kind of the same reasons as, what, I really don't want to run out of money. So I'm not going to buy that. I'll get by with this, my old car, or I'll get by with whatever. And they base decisions on that. And I think that's not good. And then, maybe and I mentioned this earlier, well, right now the market's pretty bad, inflation's high, it's been going down. So you know what, I'm going to just wait to have that vacation because the market isn't very good. I need to wait for it to come back so that, I can do what I want to do. And then what ultimately happens is they don't spend the money, and the kids inherit the money, and then they do what you should have done when you were retired. They buy a car, they go on that vacation, they take their kids on the vacation or whatever it is. And there's products that can provide a legacy for you if you want to do that. If you want to leave a legacy, do that. But and that's various. I mean, there's another product called life insurance that is absolutely perfect for that. In fact, it'll be more tax efficient and effective if you want to leave a legacy to your kids. But don't not spend your money because you feel like you want to leave a legacy or you want to preserve your retirement. So that's kind of what these are all pointing to, is what ends up happening is the kids live their retirement.
Yeah.
So
I've seen some situations where this has happened too. And what's interesting is that in a lot of cases, the retired parent is not even evaluating the financial worthiness of their child. They
Yep.
just, they have to leave them something when
Yep.
the child has amassed a status of wealth that far
Yeah.
exceeds the parent, but the parent feels this sense of obligation to, like, I got to leave them something. And then they miss out. They literally go without. They're sacrificing
I
a
know.
lot just because they think they have to leave their kids something too. And their kids don't need it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And if you're going to just keep your retirement portfolio intact to do something like that, there's many better ways to do that and still give you the flexibility. So,
Well, we're
that's
going to
not
talk
a very
about,
good plan.
I don't know if you're going to talk about this, but I want to talk about long-term care as a part of this later, because that sort of goes into some of this other stuff too, which is, I mean, I'm also going to need money in case nobody else can afford to take care of me. So
Yeah.
we'll talk about that in a little bit, I know, but
Yeah, that's actually a really good subject that is actually you could probably just fill up another whole webinar with that subject as well. So
well, and considering that most people are aging, their parents are aging, it's a
Yep.
real concern. So some of this stuff, some of this stuff also applies to not just people who are in retirement or about to retire, but also to the kids of those parents who
Right.
maybe aren't as sophisticated when it comes to financial literacy and don't know about all these things, to say, hey, mom, hey, dad, I think I need to help you get control of your financial situation. And maybe this is something we need to look at. So
Certainly an option. Like I said, these
Mhm.
are certainly options, and these are just some additional benefits of various of annuities. I mean, you got the tax deferred growth, which I've already touched on a little bit. You're spreading a taxable income over a period of time, and depending on the state, of Texas at least has creditor protection to non-qualified annuities as well as qualified, but you have that anyways. Regardless, but non-qualified annuities, you do have creditor protection,
Yeah.
which I think is a good feature. In
Yeah.
addition to that, I mean, if you think about it, well, you're going to provide protection to your investment portfolio, and there's this white paper. I'm not even sure, Boston white paper, but it talks about and goes. It's quite lengthy, actually. I've read it a couple times. But it talks about replacing a bond portfolio with an index annuity or a fixed annuity. Then it lowers risk and generally increases returns. But when you think about it, annuities have a standard deviation of basically, well, actually zero, because the rates are guaranteed and there's no fluctuation. So by definition, they're they have the value, at least, as a zero standard deviation. And out of all the financial products out there, annuities, if you annuitize them, is the only product that no matter what happens, you will never stop receiving that paycheck from them. So I think that's a pretty interesting fact. And for many people, that can provide quite a bit of maybe comfort, I think.
Yeah. Well, everyone's living longer. That's
Yeah.
clear. I mean,
Yeah.
definitely one of those things that we all have to think about for ourselves and for our parents, right?
Exactly. So now this last section, I wanted to just get into what is available out there as far as products and options. And I just took like a brief snapshot. But really, again, annuities are a tool that you could consider a safe money option. It's a conservative option to guaranteed income, especially with markets fluctuation significant, with markets going up and down and fluctuating. And then again, that's just another stat on how many people are considering these types of things.
Yeah.
So what is it? It's an insurance contract with a company. It's going to provide, if you use, if you're accumulating inside it, provides tax deferred accumulation and growth. Fixed annuities, they just provide guaranteed growth. There is actually a version of annuities that can be invested in the stock market, which I'm not talking about today because, I'm not necessarily convinced that if you're trying to protect your money, they're an extremely great option. But you also have index annuities, which have downside protection. And then, which got a little bit cut off there, but you have the income distribution from these types of products where you can guarantee your income for life. So what are you looking at when you look at a fixed annuity? What type of rates are out there? And I just picked these up and compared them to some CDs, but you can see the significant rates that are available and why somebody might be attracted to something like this. And we're talking guaranteed rates of, upwards of 5% over a number of years. And I mean, for most people that are entering retirement or already in retirement, that's a pretty good option. I mean, it's very conservative and backed up by the insurance company that's backing it, as well as all the insurance companies that do business in your state. So these are, there's a state guarantee fund that backs up all the contracts of insurance companies that are doing business in the state. So it's not quite FDIC, but it's certainly extremely well regulated and extremely safe.
Yeah, definitely a little bit more regulated than the stock market.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, or crypto or whatever.
Woo. Yeah. I can't even imagine I can't imagine putting money into crypto. I know people do it, but being an accountant, I'm like default risk averse on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but I mean, even when interest rates were so low, I mean, you couldn't put your money in a CD, you couldn't put your money in a savings account. I mean, at one point was it like 0.02%?
Almost nothing, right?
It was like so low.
Right.
One of the things to think about is also, or maybe questions to ask in your particular situation, is also like how this fits in with the whole strategy.
Exactly.
Right? Like, what else are you doing? Some risky things, and this is less risky. Like, I think that's getting with your financial advisor and really kind of hammering out like, what risk am I taking and where? And is there a way that this fits into my overall diversification plan?
Exactly.
Or do I really need to start kind of cracking down on trying to conserve, trying to mitigate risk, like really move into a less risky position because I'm approaching that like retirement where I got to be sure. Like, no
doubt about that, Susan. And what's funny is, we work with a lot with business owners, and I know you do as well. And many times you'll see a business owner with, they got a lot of money tied up in their business, and then all their investments are many times real estate, but also they're invested in the stock market. And it's like, okay, so you're taking a lot of risk in your business. You might not think it, but you are. You have some rental property that are pretty well leveraged, and so that's pretty risky. And then you're taking risk in your retirement funds, so it's like risk everywhere. And where, how are you going to make sure that you just keep what you have? I see many business owners typically will avoid the stock market in some cases. So, anyways, it's certainly a good diversification tool. These types of things.
I think that's the importance of having discussions like this, is that it's just literacy around those things. So you can start the conversations, like, because for some people, they might listen to you, Jordan, and say, wait a minute, what am I invested in? Right.
Yeah.
So they need to go back and make sure they truly understand what they're doing. So
or I've never even heard of this type of stuff, sometimes you'll hear, I thought these were all bad or whatever, so anyways.
Okay.
And then fixed index annuities are really another option you might consider for accumulation. And I've mentioned this already, but potentially market returns with downside protection, no risk of principal. So truly no risk. I mean, it's you have the risk of no returns, I suppose. And this is just an example that I pulled. And let me explain it, and then hopefully this will make a lot of sense. But the blue line is the S&P 500. The orange line is a typical indexed annuity with a zero floor and a cap. And then the gray line is another indice that is typically available right now, actually available in certain products. And so you can see the S&P 500 is going up, down, up, and it goes up a lot, and then it kind of goes down a little bit. And the one with the 8.5 cap, the orange line, you can see it's, just going up a little bit every year. And then you have those floors where you get zero and goes up a little bit every year and so forth. And those flat lines are obviously associated with years that the market went down. So this is, and this is based on $100,000. And yeah, an index annuity probably, in many cases won't outperform the overall market, at least if you base it on history. This is last 20 years. It's possible for it to overperform. Like if you just look at 2003 to 2009, it's certainly overperforming, but it may not actually. And then here's just another example of some indexes that are available. I pulled this from actually a product provider on their index called the Mark V, and just some 10-year performance numbers that they're providing nowadays. And again, this is all historical. So is it going to happen? Maybe. It could also not happen. I can guarantee you nothing's going to look exactly like this, but what I can guarantee you is you would never lose money due to market performance, which I think is pretty comforting.
Yeah, I think for people, especially approaching retirement and retirement.
Yeah,
that would be a great comfort, right? You can rest.
Exactly. And you
should enjoy your retirement.
Exactly. And this is not appropriate for every dime you have, but it's certainly an option for a portion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then again, this is just a bar graph of the last page, so you can kind of see some results of outcome. But this is like the best outcome is, that's like a pretty insane return over 10 years to get up to 3 million from 1 million. So just kind of some material from a product company.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, it is. But anyways, if you have any questions, I don't know if you have the questions turned on, but if anything comes through, I don't know how to even look at them.
Okay.
You can feel free to reach out. Go ahead, Susan.
Actually, somebody does have a question. So the question is, what are the benefits of various life insurance amounts? When would you use them? And they've heard of a long-term care rider or add-on. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that. I know that's not directly related to annuities. I know you are familiar with all of those products.
Yeah, definitely. So that's I'm going to say this. I'm going to say it depends, but I hate to say that. So I'll start with the first one. The amount. What's the right amount for you? For me is going to be different than for Susan. That's going to be different than for like her dad or my dad or whatever. The amount of insurance that you have is really I would say a personal decision. Anybody that mathematically calculates how much you needs to be based on what you feel like what you want to happen. So for me, I still have young kids and whatnot. I want to make sure that they stay exactly the way that they would be if I was around earning what I'm earning. So for me, that's probably a higher number than somebody who's maybe entering retirement or somebody who wants to provide a legacy or whatever. I don't know. It depends on your situation, really and truly. And then the type, which I think was the other question, the type, again, really depends on your goal. And we'd have to look at different factors. Is having access to the cash value important to you? Like, okay, if something happens, would you need to maybe grab some money out of it? Is providing the most amount of death benefit important to you? Is having that long-term care option important to you? Because many policies nowadays are providing that. So you can, sort of spend down the death benefit for long-term care as an alternative to spending down your own assets, which in many cases is can be very effective and can provide a lower overall cost than rating your portfolio or whatever other assets you have to pay for that care. So I don't know if that directly answers your question. I hopefully indirectly answers the question, but it's a complicated question, and it's certainly something that well, on another note, be happy to visit with somebody about and make sure that they're getting accurate and up to date information.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I think everyone should reach out to you, Jordan, if they have any questions, or if they are just interested in learning more, or want to just evaluate perhaps, how does this fit in with what I do? And even connecting you into their current team, can
Sure.
bring you in as an expert to sort of help map out the path forward.
Yeah, no, that's a really good yeah, I think that's a really good next steps. If you are interested, just you can email me or call me or whatever, and I'm sure we'll send out a follow-up email with all my contact information and whatnot. And yeah, just let me know.
Okay, well, awesome. Well, Jordan, you are just just have so much knowledge on this. I really thank you for coming and sharing about it, and
Sure,
helping
yeah.
people to kind of open their eyes to other alternatives, in terms of just making sure that they're saving money safely, and that
Yep.
they're gonna be okay in retirement, and they're gonna get to enjoy it.
Yes, that's the main thing, Susan. And I think these types of products could potentially help many people with that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jordan, and thank you to everyone who attended today. And we'll be seeing you guys soon.
Thanks for having me, Susan.
All right, thanks. All right, bye.
See ya.